Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, July 28, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, like I said, this is a family-friendly podcast. However, due to the nature of what we will be showing tonight, it is definitely going to be extremely adult and extremely graphic. And of course, as we put this on YouTube and Facebook, it will have a heavy parental guidance on here unless you're ready to really have that conversation with your kids about the behavior of the human condition, if you will. Aside from that, guys, welcome. So let's go ahead and get into it. I would be remiss to sit there and say before we get started, I do need to talk about a prominent civil rights figure that has just passed. I'm talking about Robert Moses, who passed away at 86 years old. For all that do not know, he was actually one of the architects in the South for fighting for voting rights, especially during the Jim Crow era. And he also is he actually has a book, Radical Mathematics, which he was trying to improve education, especially math, as far as math as a minority, especially in the South. He is actually, like I said before, a very prominent figure, and again, without his contributions, along with others, and especially with Martin Luther King and those other civil rights, we would not have been able to say, even though progress is still happening for us, we would not be able to sit there and say beyond a shadow of a doubt that his contributions are definitely legendary, especially in the world of mathematics and as far as education, which he was a big thing on. Aside from that, like I said, Radical Mathematics is the book that he actually written. And I've actually, Radical Equations. Wow, I was terrible. Radical Equations was the name of the book. And now I have to go back and reread it because it's been so long since I've read it. But just want to say, peace and condolences out to the family of Robert Moses. Like I said, legendary civil rights activist and definitely big on education. But I just wanted to make sure we give his props because, like I said, we always want to give out the roses to those who have paved the way for a lot of us, and he was definitely one of them. But moving right along, as we went from honoring somebody iconic, we thought we could get rid of Trump, and unfortunately, he's back somehow, some way, talking about something that literally and figuratively makes no sense.
In the speech, and I played a moment ago, this talk about a router. He went on a rant about subpoenaing the network routers that were used by Maricopa County's election division to verify county voting machines were not connected to the internet on election day. Here's part of what he said, Supervisor.
The county has, for whatever reason, also refused to produce the network routers. We want the routers, Sonny. Wendy, we got to get those routers, please. The routers. Come on, Kelly, we can get those routers. Those routers, you know what? We're so beyond the routers. There's so many fraudulent votes without the routers. But if you got those routers, what that will show, and they don't want to give up the routers. They don't want to give them. They are fighting like hell. Why are these commissioners fighting not to give the routers?
So your board has said the machines were not connected to the internet. Yet Trump's rant is feeding a wild and broader conspiracy theory that Italian satellites from Italy were used to change votes from Trump to Biden, I guess using routers, these routers. He's specifically calling out you and your colleagues, right? You're not handing them over. I mean, what do you say to the former president?
Well, first of all, we've had 2 independent audits here at Maricopa County from election experts that have confirmed that our machines were never connected to the internet. But he continues, and the folks out in the state Senate continue to demand these routers. The reason that they've not been turned over is because these routers essentially provide a blueprint for someone who gets them for sensitive information at Maricopa County. So that includes law enforcement information, and our sheriff, Paul Penzone, has spoken out very strongly and said that if these routers are turned over, it's going to put sensitive law enforcement activities in question and at risk. In addition, there's other personal information on there. But I can tell you that the former president and the state Senate is not giving up, because right before I came on here, the Board of Supervisors received another subpoena from the state Senate ordering us to turn over the routers in addition to some other information. And they threaten us in these papers that if we do not turn those over by August 2nd, so that's next Monday, then we could be held in contempt.
Okay, let's think about this for a second, guys. I'm not surprised. Again, Trump is out. I have been saying this. 2022 is what the Republicans are gearing for. They are going out there. They are pounding the pavement. They are going to put Trump out there because for a lot of things, Trump was their golden peacock. He would still get people to come to these rallies. Even though single-handedly he just caused a riot of white supremacists to go ahead and attack the Capitol. But that also being said, he is now in Arizona talking about we want the routers, because he's still touting the lie that the votes were changed. That Arizona voted for him, but yet it somehow got to Biden. But you know what? He wants the routers. We want the routers. And as an IT person who thinks that, okay, you think, number one, it's kind of an insult to the IT community. Because first and foremost, saying that you want the routers to prove that they were somehow connected to election voting machines when 2 independent audits have already sat there and said that they cleared them of this, and you still want the routers, do you understand exactly what a router does? Because I don't think you do. And I know I've had the same conversations when I used to work help desk, the same conversation I used to have with people. I used to say, you know what a router is? A router is nothing but a switchboard. That's it. Contains no information, doesn't hold anything. It simply blocks and passes through. That's it. I don't know what you're going to get from this, Trump. That's the reason why they're not giving you the routers, aside from the fact they're being used for other things than what they're intended to. But again, I've been saying this over and over again. Trump is finding every which way to stay relevant, to keep saying the same lies. I mean, he still thinks that he's still somehow going to be president, and we're still within the first year of the Biden-Harris administration. And he still thinks, for some odd reason, they cheated me out of the presidency, they did this. No. Again, the reason why Republicans are changing the laws, are making it harder to vote, are targeting minorities, is simply put, there was not one instance of voter fraud. They're mad because of voter turnout. The voter turnout did not appeal in their way, because I guarantee, above all else, if the voter turnout happened the way that the Republicans wanted it, we would not hear a peep of voter fraud. But again, this is just what Trump does. He sits there and he tells lies and he spins them, and somehow he still gets people at these rallies. Beyond me, the only way I can think of is like a cult standpoint. At this point, it's a cult. Because I used to sit there and say, how in the world are people coming to Trump rallies? And then I think about January 6th. I think about the fact that he incited a riot, a failed coup d'etat, and now, again, even now as we're going to that next story, but before we get to that next story, it just makes me wonder. I used to sit there and say, I wonder how people follow Trump. And let me get past this first story first. Let me get past the Simone Biles, because I want to talk about that too, because that's a big one. Now, for all those, like I said, if you've been under a rock or not been paying attention to the Tokyo Olympics, that yes, one of the heavy favorites, Simone Biles, did actually withdraw from the rest of the did withdraw from the from Team USA. And again, the outpouring, you would think, Simone Biles probably the greatest gymnast of all time. I mean, 25 world medals, unheard of. The things that she was doing, no one else could do. The fact that they tried to rescale her down, simply put, because her talent and abilities were off the charts. And you would think, for a woman of her caliber, for a woman that literally can say she's GOAT status because of all the things she has accomplished and done, you would think America would give her a break. You'd be wrong.
Happened at the Olympics. Simone Biles pulling out of the individual all-around competition, citing her mental health. And she talked to the cameras yesterday after dropping out of the team competition.
I was just like shaking, could barely nap. I've just never felt like this going into a competition before. Once I came out here, I was like, no, mental is not there. So I just need to let the girls do it and focus on myself.
Now, that happened after Biles stumbled on her vault landing. She posted a score that, quite frankly, she just doesn't post, ever. A score that actually dropped Team USA into silver zone, and Biles decided that her team had a better shot trying for gold without her. They held on to silver, but Russia took gold. And in America, as many rallied behind Biles, there was also a loud chorus of critics taking aim.
She's probably the greatest gymnast of all time. She's also very selfish, she's immature, and she is a shame to the country. She's totally a sociopath. Of course she's a sociopath.
If we're okay with Simone Biles saying, hey, couldn't go tonight, mental health, we can be okay if LeBron says the same thing? She's the greatest gymnast going. He's the greatest basketball player going. Why do we have sympathy for Simone Biles, but we wouldn't have sympathy or empathy for LeBron James? It's called a double standard.
On Twitter, Piers Morgan, whose only athletic claim to fame is that he ran off the set of his former TV show simply because another host questioned his criticism of Meghan Markle, complained, quote, "Are mental health issues now the go-to excuse for any poor performance in elite sport? What a joke. Just admit you did badly, made mistakes, and will strive to do better next time. Kids need strong role models, not this nonsense." Yeah, maybe a role model like a 24-year-old who slays competition after competition and mentors the younger members of her team, who between the last Olympics and this one came out as one of the more than 150 athletes who have said publicly that they were sexually assaulted by former team doctor Larry Nassar right under the nose of USA Gymnastics.
I remember asking one of my friends, hey, if I've been touched here, have I been sexually assaulted? And I thought I was being dramatic at first. And she's like, no, absolutely. And I remember telling my mom and my agent that I slept all the time. And it's because sleeping was basically better than like offing myself. It was like my way to escape reality.
Sleeping was better than offing herself, she said. So she slept. And then she trained as Nassar began serving a 175-year prison sentence.
I just signed your death warrant.
Biles is now in Tokyo, the only survivor of Nassar's campaign of abuse, representing for Team USA.
I had to come back to the sport to be a voice, to have change happen, because I feel like if there weren't a remaining survivor in the sport, they would have just brushed it to the side.
To be clear, Biles didn't say that factored into her decision to sit out the all-around competition or the individual competition. But how could her critics not consider this burden, in addition to all the usual pressure that comes along with being the face of the Olympics? Biles is the second recent athlete at peak performance facing criticism for pulling out of competition because of her mental health. The other, of course, is Naomi Osaka, the #2 women's tennis player in the world, who pulled out of the French Open. It was a move that was championed by athletes who know a thing or two about pressure and about being the best in the world, like Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time, who has been advocating that mental health be given the same weight as physical health.
I think back to the struggles that I went through when I was competing, and I don't know if I would have been able to take my own words and put them on a platform for everybody to see. We think of everything we've gone through the last year. This is something that I think really could help a lot of people.
That's because a lot of people are struggling right now compared to before the pandemic. This past February and March, suicide-related visits to the emergency room for girls aged 12 to 17 jumped 50% during the same time period in 2019. The mental health epidemic is real, and it's life-threatening. And these critics of Simone Biles, they're not just picking on a 24-year-old woman who, let's be honest, has a thing or two to teach them about mental toughness. They're sending a message to people who are struggling that if they're really tough, they won't prioritize their mental health. These critics of Simone Biles don't know what they're talking about. They are witnessing strength, even as they condemn it as weakness.
She's not wrong. Again, you could sit there and see it on social media all over the place. Oh, some guys, not even some, there are some other ones, not just white dudes. There are black guys out there, are actually black people out there who are sitting there saying that she cracked under the pressure. Let's forget. Let's actually look at her resume. 25 world medals, right? Killed it in the previous Olympics. Killed it in almost every one of her appearances. She has slayed. Okay. Now understand, the one thing I always want to say, because again, I don't like Doug Gottlieb just because there's a reason why he is where he is, and various other people. But again, what a lot of people don't understand is, first and foremost, the pressure that athletes are under. Because it's always amazing to say, well, some people can handle the pressure. Really? Let me put it this way. Michael Phelps. I remember when he had his breakdown and all of a sudden, they said, oh, well, he does weed and all this stuff. Did they say he cracked under the pressure? No, they said he had problems. Oh, let's not forget when almost every sports team that does something and cracks under pressure. Or my personal favorite, they love going back to LeBron James. Remember LeBron James from 2 years ago, the cramps? He got the cramps and had to be carried off, and the endless amount of streams, the endless amount of memes and stuff from that came about them cramps and stuff. Everybody's like, oh, well, that's why hockey's a tougher sport. Yes, that's full of concussions, loss of memory, and multiple injuries. But one thing I will always say above all else, those are high pressure situations. For individuals to literally and figuratively be able to perform at a high level, that alone is true strength. And again, the Olympics is on another level. You're in front of the world. You're representing your country. The pressure is enormous. And if you are never an athlete to put yourself in that situation, then how can we sit there and judge somebody who sat there and said, my mind ain't right. My mind ain't right. My body ain't right. If my mind ain't right, my body ain't going to be right. I'm not going to try to do something that could directly harm myself. Like Carrie Struggs. Remember her? Remember one-legged Carrie who sat there and still did the vault jump? And we all knew that girl was hurt. We all knew she was hurt. And what did she do? And I love when people try to use this as an example. Well, she went up there, she listened to her coach. Her coach said, you got one more in you. And she goes up there and she does it. Where is she now? She's retired. That's a lot of things these other people don't know. See, in high-pressure sports, these gymnasts, these football players, these basketball players, hockey players, when you're playing at the professional level, you have all but one small window. And depending on what you play, that window can be smaller and it can be larger. Don't believe me? Look at football. Look at your running backs. What do you think a prime running back? What do you think the time for a prime running back is in the NFL? What, 3 seasons? 3, 4 seasons if you're lucky? by about the 5th or 6th, you're downgrading the depth chart, and that's not if you don't get. That's if you don't get injured. What's a wide receiver? Maybe 4, maybe 5 seasons. Quarterbacks have the longest time, depending on whether or not they don't get hit. You might be able to go. Quarterback could maybe go 6 or 7, maybe 8 if they're lucky. Tom Brady's in his Tom Brady for all his intents and purposes. I think he's in his 13th, 14th season, and that's only because, well, he hasn't been hit a lot because the NFL protects him. But that's a whole other story. But again, the point I'm making is that window, once you start playing, that window starts to close. You only have a limited amount of time to do all that you can do, because athletes play for the sport, but there's a money side to it too. And just like in gymnastics, there's endorsements, there's medals and things of that nature. But ask yourself one question: have you ever seen one person who does gymnastics after they do Olympics? Do they ever actually have a longer career? Most girls who do gymnastics retire before they're 24, 25. I mean, we've had last week, Carrie Struggs retired after that one-legged vault that she did. She immediately retired. Her body couldn't take it. I mean, the one with the smirk, Donica, whatever her name was, she retired. Again, body couldn't take it. What people don't understand about gymnastics is that it is a physically as well as mentally exhausting sport. So with that being said, it's amazing that we're sitting here talking about mental health in this day and age, that for some odd reason you could put mental health up there with professional sports and literally see that there is a correlation between the two. The pressure to succeed, the pressure to make sure that your mind is right, the pressure, it's there. And please, oh please, stop with the whole taking the pressure and excelling. Because I'm gonna tell you why. Because again, we're all human. There's not one person out there that can stand and say, I eat pressure for breakfast. We've all had our breaking points. And I believe that Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, just 2 recent athletes, should be commended because they sat there and said, I'm going to take my mental health seriously, because there is a big mental health epidemic in this country, and there's nothing wrong with it. And the same way Serena did. Remember Serena V.S. Williams? 2 of the most dominant women to ever play tennis. Both took sabbaticals. Why? Because they need to get their minds right. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just amazing to me how men who sit there and want to question women in a sport that they won't be able to do ever in their lives is going to talk about pressure. The fact that she is a black woman trying to succeed in a country that would rather literally shade her than appreciate her. But you want to talk about pressure. Okay. But anyway, that was my soapbox for a second, because that kind of annoyed me. So, with also that being said, guys, I did want to get to the January 6th commission, which actually is going on. And I wanted to cover the first day because the first day they actually had a few of the Capitol police officers give their testimony. And trust me, this is definitely expletive warning, because they did let the language fly on this one. So you've been warned.
At the Capitol than my entire deployment to Iraq. The writers call me traitor, a disgrace, and shouted that I, an Army veteran and a police officer, should be executed.
I was grabbed, beaten, tased, all while being called a traitor to my country. I was at risk of being stripped of and killed with my own firearm, as I heard chants of kill him with his own gun. I could still hear those words in my head today.
Several attempted to knock me over and steal my baton. One latched onto my face and got his thumb in my right eye, attempting to gouge it out. I cried out in pain and managed to shake him off.
One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This nigger voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo, nigger." Another black officer later told me he had been confronted by insurrectionists in the Capitol who told him, "Put your gun down and we'll show you what kind of nigga you really are.
Ahead of today's testimony, House Republicans defended their decision not to participate in the committee's work. And they echoed talking points from the former president, which he released last night, falsely suggesting somehow that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, was to blame for this attack. Some of the emotional testimony we heard this morning specifically addressed those kinds of efforts by many elected Republicans to whitewash, defend, or downplay the attack in defense of the former president.
What makes the struggle harder and more painful is to know so many of my fellow citizens, including so many of the people I put my life at risk to defend, are downplaying or outright denying what happened. I feel like I went to hell and back to protect them and the people in this room. But too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful. But nothing, truly nothing, has prepared me to address those elected members of our government who continue to deny the events of that day, and in doing so, betray their oath of office.
Now imagine you're a Capitol Police officer on January 6th, and you witnessed a whole bunch of literal white terrorists, white supremacists, nationalist terrorists, whatever you want to call them, they're called terrorists, assault Capitol Police. And even more so as you're giving this testimony that Republicans are nowhere to be found, and at the same time, that particular officer got a voicemail while he was testifying. And again, as I play this video, it is extremely graphic. You've been warned.
Traumatic stress disorder. Okay. It includes some incredibly offensive language, but we think people need to hear the kind of attacks that these officers are facing right now just for telling the truth about January 6th. Play it.
Yeah, this is from Michael Fanone, Metropolitan Police Officer. You're on trial right now, lying, and you want an Emmy, an Oscar? What are you trying to go for here? You're so full of shit, you little faggot fucker. You're a little pussy, man. I can slap you up the side of your head with a backhand and knock you out, you little faggot. You're a punk faggot. You're a lying fuck. How about all that scummy black fucking scum for 2 years, destroying our cities and burning them and stealing all that shit out of the stores and everything? How about that, assaulting cops and killing people? How about that, you fucker? That was shit on the goddamn Capitol. I wish they would have killed all you scumbags, because you people are scum. They stole the election from Trump, and you know that, you scumbag. And you fucking, too bad they didn't beat the shit out of you more. You're a piece of shit. You're a little fag, you fucking scumbag.
It was important for you. You did not want us to censor that. What do you say to that? What do you want people to know? And that idiot. I mean, I remember like my first reaction immediately after listening to that phone call, which I actually received while I was testifying in the hearing today. This is what happens to people that tell the truth in Trump's America. That simple. That simple. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't hurt you.
Think about that for a second, folks. Literally and figuratively, think about that for a second. You are giving testimony on the events of what happened on January 6th. And as you are doing that, that voicemail comes in. It's like, how in the blue do you expect anybody to function? Think about this. He lost. I mean, they actually lost individuals, right? So again, with that also being said, the messed up part about this whole thing is just that you are literally and figuratively just giving the testimony of saying, this is what you hear, this is what you see, and you get this on your phone. For a lot of people, that's Trump's America. He said it best. That's Trump's America right there. They'll believe anything that a deranged old man will tell them, and will sit there and go after anybody that's deemed an enemy. Now, you want to know what's truly messed up? Because aside from the fact that Republicans were nowhere to be found, the fact that, well, I'm gonna get to the national police chapters and the Fraternal Order of Police momentarily, but what's truly messed up? Fox News, Lori Ingram's, and what she said.
I want you to get to the bottom of that.
We have more on him in a moment, but it's not about politics at all. And for best performance in an action role, the winner is Michael Fanone.
Too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist, or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
That best performance. Best performance. And that's Fox News. Why are we surprised? Laura Ingraham, Mrs. Shut Up and Dribble herself. Why are we surprised? Because Fox News isn't a news station, folks. It is literally a bunch of people with extreme right views pretending to be journalists. Laura Ingraham's is no different than Hannity, no different than Tucker. And the sad part is, I'm still surprised that, well, they used to have one over there, but, you know, she's kind of in limbo trying to get her way back in there. But we're going to leave her as the woman that shall not be named. But, again, this is the point I'm making. That I asked the same question, and actually I can't take credit for this. Jake Tapper at CNN was saying this best. He said, as these officers are testifying before a congressional committee, where is the Fraternal Order of Police? Where are the national police? Where are the police unions out to speak on behalf of these officers? The fact that they're not here says everything you want to know. So this is why I sit there and say, above all else, folks, every time I hear Blue Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, I'm going to point to these videos. Where was All Lives Matter when these officers were, when these Capitol Riot police officers were literally trying to survive? Where were they when they were getting their testimony and they're getting all of this hell thrown at them? At the same time, where is these Fraternal Order of Police when, you know, when it's not a black person? See, when it's not a whole bunch of black people talking about police, we see these police unions come out of nowhere. These Fraternal Order police unions come out of nowhere and defend themselves. But when police need defending, especially from a mob like Trump's, silence. Silence is omission. Just lets you know exactly where you stand. Even more so, I'm not surprised about Fox News, and I got actually a story on Tucker Carlson very soon. I'm sorry to say it involves Don Lemon. But moving right along, I did actually want to get to the next police story, because if you wonder where the police were instead of defending their own, well, they were too busy assaulting people. Again.
Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson described the video as despicable, horrific, and not normal, and said watching it had brought her to tears.
I'm going to tell you this video will shock your conscience. It is very disturbing.
It was early afternoon last Friday, a call for trespassing on South Parker Road. When officers John Harbert and Francine Martinez got to the scene, two of the suspects took off. When they realized the third suspect, Kyle Vinson, had a warrant for a probation violation in Denver, the officers tried to arrest him, and the situation quickly turned violent.
Stop fighting! Stop fighting!
Body camera video shows Officer Harbert pistol whipping Vinson 13 times, according to Chief Wilson, causing several large welts on Vinson's face. At one point, Harbert also held Vinson down by his throat and threatened to shoot him.
On your face! On your face!
Vinson was treated and released from the hospital and is now in the Denver jail on that probation violation. Aurora police are not charging him with trespassing or any other crime. How do you think an incident like this is possible?
I don't know.
Meanwhile, prosecutors have charged Officer Hobart with several counts of assault and Officer Martinez with failing to intervene. At a press conference Tuesday afternoon, Aurora's visibly shaken police chief apologized to Kyle Vinson and to the community and vowed to redouble her efforts to reform the department.
We're disgusted. We're angry. This is not police work. This is not the Aurora Police Department. This was criminal.
In Aurora, Matt Jablow.
Yeah, you wonder where the police were? Beating up somebody else. And there is no excuse. There is no excuse for pistol whipping, especially when you have backup, when you have non-lethal options, and the person that was the suspect in question wasn't resisting. But you decided to take out your gun and pistol whip him multiple times in the head. That's not the sign of a good officer. You're right. The police chief is right. But again, this is the same thing that we as minorities have been saying about law enforcement since the beginning of the 40s, since the beginning of the 20s. They hire these people. They ship them around when they get in trouble. And you don't believe me? There's a person that literally got off for killing off a black man who's back on the force in another state. See, it's the one thing I'll say. This is the reason why I will keep saying this. This is why I sat there and said, if I come up off these podcasts and people come back to them and sit there and say, well, you talk this way about police, because I'm right. Because the police unions, the fraternal order police, all of them out there, because when their officers are needed, especially when they're being attacked by white supremacists, they get silent. But let us, when we get beat up by police, or shot by police, or killed by police, or hemmed up by police, because they overstep their bounds, officers that should not be having a badge, and things of that nature, because the simple fact of the matter is, these policemen are not here to protect and serve. They are here to literally subdue, and if need be, at their discretion, kill people. Choke them out if you're lucky. So I'll keep saying defund the police. I'll keep saying that, that to qualify for a police officer requires much more qualifications. It requires much more training, much more psyche evals and things of that nature. All of that and then some. Because how do other countries have their law enforcement figured out, and yet we are still operating like we're back in the 40s? How? Because it's amazing that, again, pistol up 13 times, it's almost like, how is this man still on the force? And then you think about it. Because policemen are more protected than the citizens they serve. And that alone should get a lot of people wondering and asking questions why that is. But moving right along, guys, I did want to go ahead and talk about the next thing. That, of course, along with the massive heat wave that a lot of us are experiencing in the U.S., we're unfortunately going to be experiencing living under the bubble again. Or I should say very close. Because of the expansion of the Delta variant, which is now making COVID cases rise in every state, the CDC is updating its masking guidance, which means that very soon, if not already, that they will sit there and say that people who are vaccinated may need to go back to wearing masks indoors in places. Only because, and I say this with all sincerity in the world, because a lot of people are still unvaccinated. Now, again, guys, I have been saying this. I don't know how else to say it, especially as schools are starting to gear back up, and some people are considering sending their children back to public schools or private schools, wherever they go, and that some schools are trying to figure out whether or not the kids should wear masks. However, we're getting close again to being back to lockdown levels. This right here is why I sit there and say, if we do not learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. I have been saying that because it is amazing to me when the vaccine came out and it was free and all you had to do was go get your shot. When people start getting vaccinated, guess what? Vaccinations went up, cases went down, you can start to release some of the lockdown procedures. Now what happened? Just like we figured, variants of the COVID-19 virus would show up, Those who are unvaccinated still want to sit there and shout their personal freedoms. You can't tell me what to do. It's my personal right. Or the stupidest response I've ever heard of. How you been vaccinated? You can't ask me that. That's HIPAA violation. No, it's not. It's nowhere near HIPAA violation. But for the simple fact of the matter, guys, I have been saying this for the longest time, and I hate to say this, but unvaccinated people, if you are watching this, I say this with all the sincerity in the world. Y'all are the sole reason why we're going to go back to lockdown procedure. This, I'm not getting my shot, or my family's not going to get this shot, or I'm just going to just wear a mask. You know, you're going to do everything except give a logical explanation why you will not get a shot. Because I guarantee what is going to happen is this. It's already happening, because President Biden has already sat there and said that all federal workers will have to be vaccinated. Hospitals are cracking down on this. That in order for you to work in a hospital, you will have to be vaccinated. If not, you'll be fired. Happened in Houston already. It happened in Houston already, where a bunch of workers tried to sue and try to say their rights were violated when not realizing that you're in a hospital. You should be vaccinated because you're around individuals. It's not that hard to figure out. And trust me, what's really going to happen very soon is that businesses themselves will also start doing that. Because you know why? We gave people freedom of choice to decide when they should get their shots. When they get their vaccine shots, they haven't done it or refuse to do it. And I've been saying this. You have more at this time, and Tennessee is one of the worst vaccination rates out there next to Mississippi and Arizona, but we again are finding ourselves in the same situation that we will be in as we were in last March. That we will be back under lockdown, that we will be all working from home, won't be able to go out, won't be able to do much outside of going to grocery stores, things of that nature, and this whole thing about going to concerts and stuff, it's all going to be shut down again. Why? Because you're going to have individuals who will still swear up and down that getting a vaccine is wrong. And even more so, you're going to get those ones I like to call the new believers, where they got the vaccine. They got COVID, right? And now they're pro-vaccine. Like Nashville's own Phil Valentine, which again, conservative state, unvaccinated, got COVID-19. Who knew?
Show host Phil Valentine is in the hospital, seriously ill with COVID, and he's changed his position on vaccines months after downplaying the need for them. His family has posted online that Valentine contracted the coronavirus more than a week ago and is now in very serious condition with pneumonia. They go on to say, quote, Phil regrets not being more vehemently pro-vaccine and looks forward to being able to more vigorously advocate that position as soon as he is back on the air, which we all hope will be soon. Among some of the false claims that Valentine had pushed, he said this in December, quote, if I decide not to get vaccinated, I'm not putting anyone else's life in danger, except perhaps people who have made the same decision. Phil's brother, Mark Valentine, joins me now. Mark, thank you so much for your time and for being here. We're so sorry that your family is going through this ordeal.
Well, it's a trying times for sure, and I'm delighted to be here, and I appreciate you having me on.
How is Phil doing?
He is better than he was a few days ago. He's still very deep in the woods. He is not on a ventilator, has not been on a ventilator, and he is breathing with assistance via a high-flow oxygen machine during the day, which is a cannula affair, and at night a BiPAP mask to keep his O2 levels up, and that apparently is the name of the game, to keep his oxygen levels up, and that's what's going on. As recently as yesterday, he was, when he's not sleeping, he's fully communicative, talkative, as you might imagine, and yesterday was up, looking at his computer and, talking normally, and we took that as a very good sign. It's as was described by one of my doctor friends, it's a non-linear recovery. And so it's ups and downs, and, one step forward, two steps back, sometimes the opposite. But we're very hopeful. It's not time to say he's turned the corner, because he hasn't, but we are hoping and praying that that's going to come soon.
Absolutely. And we know this is not linear. This is a roller coaster. I mean, every person, every family member virtually that we've talked to has described setbacks, good days, and then setbacks. Do you, because he's communicating with you and you're talking to him, do you know how this experience has changed his thinking on vaccines and getting vaccinated?
I do. So let me clear up one thing. I'm not able to talk to him directly because of the way the restrictions are in the area where he is. So I'm having to communicate with him, with Susan, his wife, being the translator. So I text her, she talks to him, and then she sends information back. So to that extent, I am communicating with him. To answer your question, he first of all, Phil has never been an anti-vax person. If you look at his thoughts and communications are well documented, and he has historically said, assess the situation based on your own risk environment, talk to your physician and that sort of thing, and then make up your mind. But he's never been one to oppose vaccinations in general, but he recognizes now that his not getting the vaccination has probably caused a bunch of other people not to get vaccinated, and that he regrets. He regrets not being more pro-vaccination and more vehemently advocating that position, as the press release said. Yeah. So it has been a cathartic event for him.
Okay, so let's stop that right there. Just go ahead and just call it the best. For all those that don't know, Phil Valentine, for the simple fact of the matter, if you know him in Nashville, he's a conservative talk host on Super Talk 99.7, and I've listened to him. And it's funny how he sits there and says his brother is right. He does not say per se that he does not say per se that he's against getting vaccinated. He sat there and said, exactly word for word, assess the situation and go at your own risk. But he wasn't promoting it either. And these conservatives, because of the simple fact of the matter of who we have around, they want to turn around and literally and figuratively just seem to be about this situation of, we got to draw the line. We have to cross that line somehow. And again, I'm not surprised by that. But the simple fact of the matter is, it's amazing how all these conservatives, when they get COVID, all of a sudden, I should have probably been more vocal about the vaccine. I should have been more vocal about this, that, and the other. It's easy to say you have hindsight when you're on the other side of the ball now. You're not only, and it's amazing to the simple fact of the matter, where again, it's just it's literally and figuratively, now he wants to be it. And I said, this is what unvaccinated people do. You all want to sit there and play that role, and it's just like systemic racism. You will not do anything about it until it happens to you or close to you. So of course I'm hoping he recovers. But now it's just like, do you see why we say you should be vaccinated? Do you see why we sit there and say that you should be above these things? Do you see why that we sit here and say, if you're not vaccinated, this could happen to you? Well, genius, this is what happened. It happened to you. So we're not surprised by that. So, again, they're not the only ones. Like I said, you're literally fighting ignorance. Even more so, when you're trying to do the right thing, you're still fighting ignorance. Like this restaurant owner was fighting against Marjorie Taylor Greene.
A new rule. If you are not vaccinated, you won't be served, after the owner and 3 employees were infected with COVID despite being vaccinated. Since instituting the rule, the restaurant has been the target of a number of attacks, including from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. The owner of that restaurant, Argosys, is with us now, Armando Celentano. Armando, thank you so much for being with us this morning to talk about this. This is a tough situation that a lot of restaurateurs and their employees are in. And you're facing this. You and 3 other employees tested positive despite being vaccinated. Can you tell us how you all are faring today?
We're all on the mend, thankfully, and we're trying to get our business back open and back up and running as normal. Thanks.
Okay, so you tell us about putting this rule in place. Tell us how you decided to do that.
Well, we decided to do this to offer our staff a better quality of life and a safer work environment, specifically with the lower risk of infection COVID. As a small business owner, I feel I have the right to offer that, regardless of any Washington politician using their own version of cancel culture to intimidate us and possibly shut us down. Our goal is to protect our employees first.
I assume that Washington politician you're talking about, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who of course represents Congressional District 14, which is in Northwest Georgia. And she tweeted that this is called segregation. Will you be testing everyone at the door for the flu, strep throat, stomach bugs, colds, meningitis, AIDS, venereal diseases, Hep A, Hep C, staph infections, athlete's foot, pink eye, croup, bronchitis, ringworm, scabies, or any other contagions? Tell us what that response has meant for you.
First of all, I'd like to say everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And I've certainly been guilty of not so civil discourse regarding this. Really, we're only trying to put our people back to work, hardworking Georgians who are looking forward to reentering society and being able to make an honest living. Unfortunately, that this particular tweet is hindering that their ability to do that by putting them under unnecessary stress of infection and threat.
And how are you going to enforce this rule, Armando?
Well, to be honest, the sign does a lot of the heavy lifting for us. I don't have the staff to check every Vax card at the door. And I hope it really never comes to that. What we are asking and being very honest about is we reserve the right to see everyone's vaccine card, especially if they are up moving around our bar and main seating area without a mask. The goal here is to protect staff and our guests from possible COVID infection.
Nothing about that. I got nothing against that because literally the man just wants people to feel safe.
So in a matter for a few short on Tuesday, Fox and Newsmax viewers.
Sorry, thought I caught it. Anyway, nothing against that guy. Reason being because he wants to make sure that everything is safe. He wants people who have had vaccines, feel free to come to my restaurant. You just got to prove you got your shots. What's wrong with that? Well, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene has an issue with that because she's an idiot, and at the same time, she's going to sit there and say, "Well, you can't harm me because of my personal choice." And this is where I say is the hypocrisy of conservatives, because conservatives want their rights and freedoms, but they don't want to handle the consequences that come with them, or when a business decides that they want to do a certain thing that goes against personal freedom. See, you don't have to go to McDonald's if you don't want to. You have plenty of other restaurant choices out there. But if McDonald's decides tomorrow that, hey, the only way we're going to serve you if you're vaccinated, and you have to have your vaccination card to prove that you're vaccinated, and we will be checking them, what you going to sit there and say? That McDonald's has something against you? No, because McDonald's made a business decision, and you can abide by it, or you can go somewhere else. But you can't complain when you can't complain when your decision and the consequence that followed kept you from getting the Big Mac. That's on you. And so with Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing the same thing, but I actually commend this guy. And he's right. That's going to be quite the task to make sure that above all else, you're making sure vaccinated people are getting in there. Aside from another restaurant who's taking a different turn, if you will.
A negative. This is the same restaurant that refused to stop indoor dining at the start of the pandemic. Then it made everyone take off their masks before coming inside.
As Orange County reporter Jessica DeNova shows us, now signs on the window let people know that only the unvaccinated are welcome.
The owner of Basilicos Pasta e Vino making his stance on vaccinations clear with these flyers posted outside his restaurant and on social media. They read, "Notice proof of being unvaccinated required." Tanya Shear, who cuts hair at a nearby barber shop, says she's aware of the owner's anti-mask, anti-vaccination stance. They've been very open about it throughout the pandemic on their storefront and online. Shear, who is vaccinated, says she doesn't feel unwelcomed by it.
No, because you got other places that want you vaccinated to come in. No difference, right? So, no.
But many people are bothered, according to reviews on Yelp Monday. Dozens leaving low ratings with comments like this one reading, "What a slap in the face to all those who died from COVID-19. The increased public attention leading to Yelp temporarily disabling posting on the page. The owner of the business responding to the backlash in this post on Facebook writing, "Here come the haters, and with it the harassing, nonstop phone calls, threats, and hundreds of one-star reviews. And guess what? We at Basilico's Pasta e Vino wear it as a badge of honor," adding, "We feel blessed to go into battle against all of you in defense of American liberty and freedom, so bring it on." Meanwhile, a look at current Orange County COVID-19 case rates shows a rise in infections began almost right after the economy reopened on June 15th, when the county's healthcare agency reported 191 cases. That number jumping up nearly 10 times a month later. The data shows this spike is mainly among unvaccinated individuals, with the 7-day average case rate per 100,000 for unvaccinated people now at more than 15. That's 5 times higher than that of the vaccinated OC community. That case rate for unvaccinated people would put OC back into the most restrictive tier, purple. If we were still in that tier system, and when we take a look at the case rates for vaccinated folks here in Orange County, we would fall under the orange tier.
Yes, just as there's a good idea, there's also a bad idea. And yes, that I would be concerned if I was a business owner right next to that restaurant, and again, unvaccinated. How are you gonna know? See, that's why I said this is where I said the stupidity comes in. Because if you're vaccinated, obviously you have a vaccination card. If you're unvaccinated, how am I gonna prove it? Me as a vaccinated person can walk straight into that restaurant. Are you unvaccinated? Yeah. How are you gonna prove it? Like I said, it's stupidity in an area, in a time when the unvaccinated honestly should be getting vaccinated. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it gets to the point to where you should just force everybody to get vaccinated. You really should. Because we've tried giving people choice. We've tried giving people the opportunity to do the right thing. But people are just they're just going to do what they want. So I can imagine there's going to be eventually a mandatory requirement. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying just, everybody have to line up and get their shots, but it's going to trickle slowly. Businesses, federal government, and trust me, businesses especially. Once businesses get the liability protection for COVID-19, especially since we now know that vaccines are helping to curb cases, it's going to become a requirement. And again, the unvaccinated are causing more of this Delta variant case to spread. The only way it can be fixed, folks, please don't pull a Phil Valentine and wait till you get COVID to be a pro-vaccine person. I'm going to keep saying this until we finally get the curb on this. Because to be honest with you, we almost got out of this pandemic. We almost got out. We almost got out to the point to where it was manageable. But now it's getting back to that worrisome point. And that alone screams volumes. There's research. The shot's free. You have 3 different versions you can go out there and go get. We have smartphones and in the golden age of digital information. It will not take much to educate yourself or go to a physician and ask questions. Please do so before you wind up in the hospital with COVID-19. Because that survival rate that Lee pointed out, it's a 99.8 survival rate. Let me tell you something. You can have high statistics and you could still be the anomaly. No matter your age, your health, or things of that nature. Just because you think it has a high probability survival rate doesn't mean the same thing will happen for you. Please get your shots. That also being said, I want to get to the last story because, again, I had to get to this because, number one, I am surprised about Don Lemon. I never thought I'd say this. Don Lemon came to the defense of one Tucker Carlson.
Because I've never thought I would be in this position to maybe somehow have to defend Tucker Carlson, but we'll see where this goes. I have mixed emotions about this one. Fox propaganda host Tucker Carlson confronted in a Montana fishing shop, called the worst human being known to man. Dan Bailey is the guy's name, posting his confrontation with the TV host to his Instagram and accusing Carlson of killing people with vaccine misinformation and supporting extreme racism. Now watch what happened.
Don't even get my I don't care, man. Dude, you are the worst human being known to man. I want you to know what you have done to this state, to the United States, to everything else in this world. I don't care that you're not here. What you've done to people's families, what you have done to everybody else in this society. Son. Oh, one.
Okay, so Fox News reacting in a statement saying ambushing Tucker Carlson while he is in a store with his family is totally inexcusable. No public figure should be accosted regardless of their political persuasion or beliefs simply due to the intolerance of another point of view. Well, the store where it happened is called Dan Bailey's Outdoor Company. It issued a public statement saying even though that they have the same name, they share no affiliation with Dan Bailey in the video. Again, it was just a coincidence. It's the same name, and that they treat every customer equally and respectfully. Let's discuss now. CNN political commentators Anna Navarro and Scott Jennings both here. Good evening to both of you. Thank you so much. Let me tell you this. I don't like it. I don't like it when people do that because I would not want it to happen to me. But I have mixed emotions because Tucker has done this to people before. Tucker said some really nasty and silly things about me, and the next day there were paparazzi in front of my house. Hiding, taking pictures. So I don't want it to happen to anyone. I don't want it to happen to Tucker. But when you do things like that, I don't know. I'm just saying that's the real deal. That's how I feel about it. Anna, listen, all of us, we're all on TV. We've been approached. We hear good things. We hear bad things from people. We don't even know who they are. It's part of the gig. Don't you think this went a little too far, though?
I actually thought the guy who confronted him was quite polite, was not shouting, was not violent, was not aggressive in any way. He expressed his opinion in the same way that Tucker Carlson expresses his opinion on a nightly basis on a much larger platform. Listen, Don, I've seen videos like this about Chris Cuomo when his kids are in tow. This has happened to me. It happened to me at a fresh market in Coconut Grove in Miami. There was this lady stalking me. I thought she wanted a selfie. No, she wanted to insult me for loathing Trump.
But I don't think that should happen to you, Ann. I don't think that should happen to Chris. I don't think it should happen to me or Scott.
Okay, well, Don, I also don't think there should be hurricanes or there should be COVID. But crap happens, okay? We get well remunerated for giving our opinion, and that comes with good and that comes with bad. So put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants and get on with life. And look, when it comes to Tucker Carlson, it's not just about infrastructure or immigration or you name it. It's about COVID and it's about life and death. And I think people are very raw and emotional and angry about that in particular. So I think that with the platform we all have, Scott, you, all of us, Tucker, I have, comes the benefit of some people liking what we say and some people not liking what we say. And in the same way I have a First Amendment right, they have a First Amendment right. Deal with it.
Yeah, but
I want that.
Your First Amendment right doesn't mean invading my personal space. I'm sorry, Anna. I understand what you're saying, and I get it. I think that what Tucker says much of the time is completely reprehensible and divorced from reality. But he has a right to be in a space and not be accosted and not be ambushed by anyone. You can yell. Look, people yell all the time at me. I was in Cincinnati. There were Trump supporters out there yelling across whatever. They weren't in my face. So if you want to stand across the street, you want to do it, fine.
There was one person who made contact there. And it was Tucker Carlson with the guy.
Yeah.
The guy never touched Tucker Carlson. The guy never got accosted Tucker Carlson.
I hear you.
He gave Tucker Carlson his opinion about what he said. And it is what
All
we
right.
have to endure and what we have to deal with for giving our opinion
I hear
every
you.
night.
And Tucker has told people if you see someone that makes a kid wear a mask, you should go and call the cops and
He's
do
let the
for
dogs
abuse
loose
or
on
whatever.
you.
I get it.
And on many other people.
Okay, Scott.
You know what? If you're going to dish it, you better be able to take it.
Scott, Fox News called it an ambush. What's your take on this? What do you think?
Well, I agree. It was an ambush. I thought Tucker handled it fine. You know, he's been approached before, and he usually finds a way to diffuse it and laugh it off. I thought the guy actually looked pretty aggressive. He got right in his face. He was right up chest to chest with him. He looked like he was trying to move with Tucker as Tucker was trying to get away. And I had this similar reaction to you, Don. I don't want this to happen to Tucker Carlson because I don't want it to happen to you. I mean, look, let's be honest. You, by the President of the United States, have been personally singled out. People at CNN have been personally singled out. You know there's a whole group of folks out there who'd love to get in the face or worse of someone here. And there's a whole group of folks out there, obviously, who would love to get in the face or worse of someone at Fox News or MSNBC or anywhere else. And so I was really uncomfortable with this. And candidly, I think to even try to rationalize it, to laugh it off, or to say, hey, put on your big boy pants, to me is to condone it. And if you want to condone a confrontation like this, I think basically you're inviting the next one, and the next person may not have the same physical restraint. I really think sometimes in these confrontations, Don, you've met people, I'm sure, out there who look like they would love to commit violence. And so I think when you encourage these kinds of confrontations or condone it, you know, the next one may not be so friendly and people may lay hands on each other. And that makes me extremely uncomfortable. I don't mind this guy's views. He's welcome to have them. But in a space like that Tucker's daughter was there in a small store, it just made me uncomfortable.
Well, look, my response is always, thank you. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Even if they say the worst things about me. Because really, I just want to diffuse it and I want them to go away. And listen, again, I know people have the right. I'm on TV. I give my point of view and I say my take all the time. And so I understand it's going to happen, but do I like it?
Oh, Don, you were doing so well. You were doing so well. Sometimes I give Don Lemon credit. I give him credit sometimes for having conviction. I give him credit sometimes. Now I want to play a video because again, I envy the guy who was able to go up to Tucker Carlson and sit there and say, you by far, and I would have added some other stuff to it, along with Hannity, along with Ingram, along with Fox and Friends, along with HLN, along with Newsmax, along with OAN. You guys are the Daily Beast, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens. You guys are the sole reason for the idiocracy of this country. And I would have sat there and said it above all else. I would have sat there and said above all else, this is the reason. You by far are the worst human being. The stuff that you said, the things that you said, and the effect that it has on people. I don't knock the guy. I commend him because he said it calmly. He didn't yell. But what killed me about Lemon was that, oh well, he should never talk to Tucker that way. It's his personal space. No. See, here's the thing. You can't be a public figure but claim private citizen. You want to be in front of the camera? You're also going to be in front of the camera 24/7. And Navarro said it best. We are public figures, which means that people are going to walk up on us and give us our sole opinion. And they can do that. Just as well, and they know, well, they don't have the right to invade my personal space. But if he said it across the street, you would never pay no attention. That person wanted Tucker Carlson to know his opinion. And he did so in a very polite, did not yell, did not accost him or anything of the fact. It was the fact that Tucker Carlson turned around and said, settle down, son. He goes, son, don't you ever call me son. He's the one that tried to demasculate the man. He could have sat there and said, okay, well, thank you for your opinion and thanks for watching. But he didn't. Settle down, son, and walked off laughing. You know who people who do that? Privileged folks. Privileged folks who will literally laugh it off because they know they don't have to take your opinion seriously because they're not your demographic. So I don't get you, Lemon. Lemon, usually I will sit there and agree with you, but in this case, I can't. Because you're the same guy who literally called out the president. Well, who called out Trump at the time when he was president. Aren't you the same Don Lemon that called the president out when he talked about CNN and called them fake news, that they're out to get me, they're out to do this, all the slander and libel, all the tumultuous stuff that he has said about you and other journalists there at CNN? Weren't you the same cat from your actual desk call out the president? What makes that no different than that man calling out Tucker Carlson? See, that's why I want to sit there and say the whole time, there's a little bit of hypocriticism there, Don, because you can't sit there and say, well, he should never done that, when you use your own podium to call the president because he was firing shots at CNN every chance he got. So yes, Don, just like Anna says, this wasn't accosting. This was actually his chickens coming home to roost. And I, for one, am all for letting Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, even though he's not with them anymore, and all those at Fox News, at OAN, at the Daily Beast, at, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk. I could keep going down the list of all these individuals because they are what's wrong with the idiot. They are literally the catalyst for the idiocracy trying to present themselves as intelligent. They are. So so above all else, I commend that man for saying what Tucker Carlson does. And I'm disappointed in Don because you call yourself a hypocrite considering you called out the president. We ain't forgot. It's on video. Even on CNN.com to pull it up. But that being said, guys, we are going to go ahead and go to our feel good segment because like I understand how Frack got here, we do cover a lot of things, sometimes doom and gloom, sometimes make you kind of want to forget that, the human race is actually decent. But like I said, it's the middle of the week. Tomorrow's Friday, which is Thursday. We're trying to leave things on a good note, need a little bit of positivity, and sometimes strange stories make me smile. Much like this one, which again is still by far the strangest story I have ever seen, where Doritos offered a 13-year-old girl $20,000 as a reward for discovering a rare puffy chip, which she listed on eBay. As it says, Doritos is paying 20 grand to an Australian teenager for discovering a rare chip. After listing on eBay where bids reached $100,000, she decided that she was going to sell it to Doritos for 20 grand. And then it's like, again, a chip, a puffed up Dorito chip that she found, and Doritos wants it back and was willing to pay her $20,000. Although it's kind of weird that where bids reached $100,000, I'm like, let me get this straight. The bids reached $100,000. I guess they didn't pay. I guess they didn't pay, because I was thinking to myself, 20 grand versus 100 grand. That's okay. I could be wrong. Maybe Doritos paid more, but I just know this: that if you find a puffy chip somewhere in a Doritos bag and you put it out on eBay, you yourself might get paid. And I can't knock the teenager who right now has a nice little sum of money, and it's probably perfect because the school year's coming around the corner. So anyway, kudos to them. It just goes to show you can sell anything and get profit from it. With that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast tonight. I do thank everybody that watched, that liked, that shared, letting people know we were live. I certainly appreciate that in the middle of the week. Before I get out of here, I do got to do some shameless plugging. I want to talk to my buddy, Big BZA Dot, who usually my podcasting brother in arms, who also does his own podcast, The Smoking Trailers, every Sunday from 6:30 to 9, in which he goes over trailers of movies and video games that he finds interesting. He also has the REF, which is like America's Funniest Home Videos, except done by World Star, so it's definitely for the adult, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. as well every Tuesday. And also for any other podcasts, any other news, definitely check him out, A. Levon Weatherspoon, on Facebook, at Big BZA Dot on all socials. As for yours truly, the link at the bottom, you copy and paste that into your browser, will take you to my link tree for my Facebook and YouTube groups, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course the Off Limits podcast. So definitely check them out, like, share, and subscribe. Again, guys, COVID-19 is real. Please, if you haven't got your shots already, go ahead and do so. At the same time, guys, let's not wait till you're in the hospital to finally get sick to actually do something right. Aside from that, guys, last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We do not try to change minds, persuade people, or try to do anything of that nature. We are simply doing what news stations of old try to do, which is basically inform you and allow you to make up your own mind. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. When we're informed, we can do great things and be progressive, like elect our first Madam Vice President who is black. Still hope for Michelle Obama in 2024. But when we're uninformed, we get trumped by getting Trump, and then wonder how the Frack we got here. Thank you for watching, guys. If you're watching this on the playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know you guys' opinions. Aside from that, I will see you guys on Get Bit Podcast with me and Joe this Friday, 8:30. And of course, on Saturday with How the Frack we got here, the weekend edition, and get at the Optimus Podcast. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this, guys. Peace.